Hello, this is Marty Nickerson. I wanted to do this video today to give some guidance and to illustrate a point. There has been a lot of discussion in the high-end and audiophile communities, both sides, as to whether or not the Technics model turntable Sam Lima-1200 series can be a viable audiophile approvable solution for vinyl playback as an LP front end. My position on this is not only is it a viable solution, but it is an audiophile playback machine if you tweak it a bit. We kind of slam this table because of the fact it's built well. We look at this turntable and say it's a great broadcast machine because it takes a lot of torture. And also, as a result of us seeing so many used in clubs and radio stations and broadcast platforms. Well, the argument is this is a great broadcast machine, but the argument also stands out there among some people that that's its intended purpose, and as a direct result of the purpose and what it's been used for, that it's not a good platform to set up an audiophile system with. I don't believe that. I have personal experience, as you can see in front of you. My table can shock and awe most people the way I have it configured. And if you have a Technics SL1200, please listen to what I'm going to give you, because I don't want you to throw this table out because you want something a little bit better. This table has a lot of qualities and a lot of people, or I say most people, don't even know how to unlock. So, what I'm going to do now is go through some enhancements, some changes you'll need to make to the base table if you want to become an audiophile level reproduction system, as opposed to just a great broadcast table that won't break on you anytime soon. This will also work for any of the clones or the variants of the 1200. The 1200 became the standard in broadcast club quality, but Gemini, Newmark, I think Verstax, Audio-Technica, the 120 right now, the 240, there's a 500 series I believe too. Pioneer's coming out with one. Many more I may have forgotten. You need to have two keys in mind. Actually three, but really two. One, for this to work the way it should, to get the maximum effect, here's what you want ideally. One, direct drive in your table. Of these magnitude, you want a table that has direct drive in it. Belt won't hurt, but one of the reasons we like this table so much is because of the fact of the precision of the speed. Therefore, we don't get wobble in note. We don't get what people have termed as the mid-range that was never there. It doesn't add this sort of wow and flutter that comes out sounding woolly when really it's not even there, because a lot of records are mastered on direct drive systems, a lot of them from Technics, built based platters. So that's one. Two, you want to make sure this should not be this should not happen. This should happen always, but just be sure this head shell here, right up in here, is detachable. Make sure that there's a collar here that you can unlock this head shell. That's key. Third, this tone arm cannot be straight on the default system. Now, there are some, primarily in European circles, they will take this arm here, all this here, out. And then to take this out, what they'll do is they'll put in a RB Riga 301, 302, 303, 500 series, 200 series, 300 series, 700 series, even 1,000 series. They'll put a SME old arm on there from the classic SME 30 series, 3009, 3012, 3 improved, some people, which if you're gonna put 3 improved, this is just as good on light cartridge. I don't get it, but okay. Then they put up the 309 series, the 5 series, the 4.5 improved, the 4.5 natural. They go down that route, or the Origin Live, which fits those mounts as well. They'll put an Origin Live in there as well. So there's Illustrin. Let me see if I can remember this. Origin Live Illustration or Illustrate or something like that. Then you have the Origin Live Silver, which is the baseline model. Then you have the Encounter. They'll put those arms on here as well. That's fine. But the original arm should be been curved. Now, what's going to happen is if you have that straight arm broadcast table, for lack of better words, you're going to have to find a way to get out of that arm, because it has this head shell, and this head shell does not allow twisting. It doesn't allow twisting here of the cartridge head shell, and to get that perfect alignment, which we'll talk about later, you have to be able to adjust this area here this way and that way. If you see a lot of straight tone arms of high-end tables, the actual slots or the angle of them, instead of them being straight down, they'd be like this in this position. That's because you need to have that extra ability to twist, because there's approximately 23 degrees, if I remember correctly, 23 degrees of error between a perfectly straight arm and getting that perfect arc point here. It's typically around 23 degrees. So, you're going to have to compensate for that. And I could be wrong on the number, I'll admit that, but I think I'm right. You have to compensate by putting a little slant in here so that you can get that optimal tracing angle, so that you can get the minimal amount of angle going across. Or if you really want to do something interesting, get the straight armed table, take it off, get something like a ET linear tracking arm. You can add in separately. There's one called a Terminator out there on eBay and YouTube. Another one is the MG. They all inexpensive, drop-in, straight tone arms, and I think a few people have done it. Some even taking Rabco arms from, I think, 60s or 70s and put them on these tables in this mount point here and worked with it. So there's people who've done it, and that you can do with the straight arm one. But if it doesn't have a curve arm and you don't have that newer arm on there, this ain't gonna work. Take it back, do it over again. With that, let's begin. First thing, we'll look at the wire choices. Now, as you can see here, right there is my head shell wires coming off the back of the cartridge, going to the junction point, inside the junction point on the head shell. These typically, when you buy these tables, come with these wires here. See that little flimsy looking thing? It's copper, it's tin connectors. Ugh, no good. You want something silver or silver blend. Now, what I'm using at this point is I'm using something from a company called NBW. The keyword is Nobody Works. N-O-B-O-D-Y-O. Try this one more time. N-O-B-O-D-Y-W-O-R-K-S on eBay. The NBW Custom Audio Solutions, right there. That's what you want. And these wires down here are not those. Those are wires I put on here from Cartridge, which will work, but they're not as good in my opinion. And longer cartridges like this one don't like it. If you got a little short little thing like the regular Shores, or let me think, the regular Shores, or you got a shorter body, maybe like the Clear Audio Wood series, those would work with these wires. But the Shores, the V series, which is what I have here, is too long for it, so it's not going to work. I even had to stack on top a little bit here because I made that maximum length. There's a company called Oyaide. I'm going to misspell it, but I'm going to try. O-I-Y or O-Y-A-I-D-E. They're out of Japan. They make silver wires for an inexpensive price, and they have a version that has shorter heads. Their heads are shorter, so it would never have this collision like that. The wire isn't as flexible because it's thicker silver grade, but it does have collapsible connectors. DH Sonic Labs makes a wire as well that's silver for around the $50 price range for a set of wires. I like these guys because these guys on eBay, they give you 2 sets when you order. So if you mess up a wire in the connection process, you can direct replace it with a mate and keep going. And you'll have spares in case you need them. Secondly, we need to talk about something very principal to any turntable. Let's put this arm back at rest. Lock it down for now. Ready for your answer? There it is. $3 Harbor Freight. No more than $5 at, well, maybe 10 at the most, at your Home Depots, Lowe's. Get them online real cheap too. Bubble level. You want to make sure that this number, well, I should say number, more like this indicator in the middle, that on all 4 planes, 1, 2, 3, and 4, that it's dead level in the middle. See that? Mine's in the middle, slightly canted. I'd probably want to adjust this way a little bit. See how that is? I could probably do that. As a matter of fact, I might just do that right now. The feet are adjustable down here on the 1200. I'm screwing up. Hey, if your mom told you where to screw up, but that told you to screw up, guess what? It worked. Got a little bit better result. I may need to lift a little higher, but as long as you're inside those lines there in the middle on all 4 planes, you're good. Here's your 5th plane. Make sure that's sitting dead in the middle because you want to make sure you're balanced on both sides. So make sure that the bubble is in the middle here, in the middle one, and make sure that your bubble's in the middle. My bubble's a little off. So that means that I'm slightly off. I'll adjust. But that's something else you need to do on these tables as well. Another thing we need to talk about is the flawed method of stylus pressure, or vertical tracking force, VTF. You were told to take this arm out, lift it up, adjust the weight way in the back here. Let me get my pointer again, my metric Allen key pointer. Adjust the weight way back in here, all the way in the back, until when you let this down, it doesn't come down, it floats. And then set this counter here. This is actually a separate separate collar inside this mechanism, this weight mechanism, than back here, than the majority. So it can adjust. Set that to 0, and now you can just set it for whatever weight they say. That's not precise at all. That's up to even over 1/4 gram off. For DJing, when you have a 3 to 5 gram cart, 1/4 gram ain't gonna kill you. When you got a cart like this, and right now I'm using the Gico SAS Stylus on a V15 5th edition, 1/4 gram is the difference between barely playable and barely listenable on both sides. I mean, let's say the worst case has 1/2 gram off. You're only supposed to track this thing at 1.75 with the brush down. That's the absolute max. And I'm sitting at 1.25, and I'm going to show you how I measure. So, that being said, you have to be very careful that you know what the accurate pressure of your stylus is. So, here's what I recommend you get. And no, I'm not talking about a club CD. This is available on eBay for about 30 bucks, or Amazon for like 30 bucks. It's a CD, right? So how is CD going to help you measure weight? Let's see. No, it's not a CD, it's a scale. And the reason I like this scale is because it's with the thick platter on, which you can get from cabusa.com. I highly recommend it. I think it's a necessity if you're going to try to turn this into a formidable playback front end. And I say try because it's always an art. Look at there. There's very little difference between the height of this platter up here and this platter here, which means with a thicker record on, you're going to get an accurate measurement. So you want to definitely take this off first. I'll throw it behind the camera somewhere so we can come back to it a little later. And how you want to measure your weight is, take this and turn it on. It's going to turn blue. Okay. And I'm going to move you in with the camera a little bit. so you can see better. That's fine. Okay, now you take it, bring your arm up, bring it over to the middle, or close to the middle as you can. That's pretty good. You're going to drop it slowly. And that says for those you can't see, that says 1.26. So 1.26 is what I'm using as my force weight. Now the optimal weight for this particular configuration is 1.25. So I'm 1/100th off. That could be as easy as 20 degrees lower in temperature, and it's kind of cool today. While I'm doing this video on this August day, it's pretty cool right now. That being said, you'll have an accurate measurement of the weight, and with an accurate measurement of the weight, then you'll actually be able to hear more detail. While we're on the subject of weighting cartridges, let's talk about cartridges. There are only a few cartridges I think are optimized and work extremely well with this table for audiophile purposes, for high-end reproduction purposes, not for DJing purposes. One, the Shure V15s with a Gico Stylus. Now, you'll buy the old cartridge, this is older. You'll buy it and it'll have a needle in it. You'll discard it and you order this. There you go. The diamond replacement stylus, Gico quality. See that? Gico quality. SAS or super analog stylus. For the 5 series, it's the VN5MR. Victor Nancy 5 Michael Roger. And you'll put that in and you'll track it. Your tracking set up on an alignment, which I'll show you in a little bit here. And you'll be ready to go. Another good one is the Audio-Technica 440 Microline ML. So Audio-Technica, same thing, but that one you won't need another needle for. Just slap it in straight directly from Amazon or any of your needle replacement shops or eBay. New, slap it right on in, wire it in. The stylus on it's good, you're good to go. Those two particularly I like for this table. Next thing. We want to talk about alignment. This is going to be interesting because the alignment is, in dealing with this table, the alignment has to deal with specifically, and forgive my if you hear creaking floors, I'm on suspended floor here. That's why I have this high rack. You're actually about 5 feet up in the air. Okay. That floor down there. Wow, more floor. Okay, there you go. So, back to my story. We're talking about alignment, and you have to make sure that that point is aligned perfectly. Now, you're going to run into a little difficulty here. If you align with most jigs, alignment jigs, what they call them, or alignment protractors, they're set for what's called, I'm going to screw the German up, but one is called a Baerwald, B-A-E-R-W-A-L-D, and one's called, I think it's called L-A-N, Longford or Longdorf or something like that. Those are the two major configurations for a alignment on most tables. This sucker here, this guy here, used the third one, which was called Stevenson, which almost nobody even knows exists. So all those high-end alignment protractors, they're almost guaranteed not to work. The only one that I could say is far superior in this case is by a company called Mint LP. I'll try to make sure I put the link in the actual bottom of the video so you can go ahead and look at it. Because they will cut, it's about $150, $200 ballpark. They will cut from their factory a protractor that will fit on a spindle with this arm on it down to the exact complete configuration specs for this arm as it sets up. Because they'll actually go to their computer, type in the arm, it'll pull up some numbers, and they'll have a laser cut alignment points in specifically for this arm to be within a 99th percentile of alignment. And they understand this thing here like Stevenson. They already know that. If you use your mobile fidelity, I think mobile fidelity is, I don't know if it's bare road or the long wolf or whatever. But it's one of those two. Most of your high-end protractors are the long one starts with an L. Excuse me, I'm bad on words right now. The better load is something you can get. The Stevenson is even hard to find, but that's what that's lined up on. You can get a better roll to work on a Technics 1200 if the cartridge has a long body like this one does. I would assume the Technics, the Audio-Technica ML440 can work with that alignment protractor because of the fact that it is a longer cartridge. But if you get something like the original Shores, which is a shorter body, it ain't gonna work. And as you see, I'm pushed all the way up. Let me pull you up a little bit. Look at there. Look at there. I'm pulled up almost to the top of that cartridge right there. And still, that's the minimum required to get to work right. So, now that we understand alignment 101, let's talk about jigs. The alignment jig. There's one available in an LP called The Director's Cut by Hi-Fi News. If you need a cheap and dirty one, go for that one. And it's only on thick paper, but I like the test record that comes with it because you can do anti-escape. There's two ways to set anti-escape. One, ask somebody with the same exact table, with the same exact needle and cartridge you have, what do you have it set on, who's an audiophile, and use that number. That's one. Two, find a album with a blank passage, a blank spot in it, lower the needle in it, and then adjust here. If it's sliding out without any groove guidance, bring this number here down. So you want to push up. If it's sliding inside, you want to bring this up to it just enough so it barely sits in the middle there on its own. That's how you set anti-escape on this table. Simple procedure. Now, alignment. For this product, here's what I'm using. It is the ACRYL stroboscope disc RC110. Now, you take this product, 30 bucks ballpark, eBay, Amazon, you know the drill. It has two sides to it. It looks like a record almost. It's a piece of plastic cut like a record. I would say the thickness is about 150 grams, give or take. You have your strobe on one side. You have quartz, so you really don't care. You're more concerned about this, the back side. See that there? Now that back side there is going to allow for you to align. Because this is what's going to happen. You put this record on here on this plate. I'm going to show you how it sets. There's two demarcation points, 1 and 2. You want to make sure three things for each point. One, that the cartridge line is parallel to this line, that the cantilever is parallel to that line, and to that line, depending on where you mount it. And you want to make sure that if you hit this point here, you can hit this point here. Those three things, you're pretty much aligned. So put the record on, or should I say, put the plastic on, same vinyl. Get in here. Okay. And what we'll do is bring it over. And I'll just give you an example on one point. You always want to cue up when doing these. Ooh. And it's an art more than a science. Get into that spot. Make sure that you lower slowly, that you don't want to pull back on a cantilever when it's on this plate. Can you say Stylus fried? See how precise I'm trying to be about this? That's about good enough. So you're in that point, and you see there it has to be lined up here, which I'm looking for another angle, and it's pretty close. Make sure the cantilever, you can look through, looking from right here, you see the line hides behind the cantilever. You want to make sure of that. And then also at this point here, that you can do that as well. And if you have to bring up a little bit, it's no big deal. As long as you can get that perfect alignment on both sides, you're in good shape. That is an art form. Excuse me. It's not easy. It's not overnight either. Now, we've talked about a bunch of things so far. Let's talk now about a critical factor here. Now, I'm going to be mean for a reason. Once you get all this done, and mind you, I'm not telling you anything you want to do on that $4,000 or $5,000 turntable that you're trying to buy. That, no, let's make it more fair. That $2,000, $3,000 turntable you're going to buy, where you think it's so much better than Technics because everybody's convinced you that it's a better build. It's a great build, but very few people realize how great a build this is. So, saying that to say this. Let's talk about your cheap, junky phono stage. Okay. This table here has great sound coming out, but what are you putting into here? Now, I'm very fortunate. I'm going to show you why. I'm going to show you right now why I'm so fortunate. But you need to come to off your levels for me. Do you mind? Okay. Let's go. Ready? And here we go. Don't know what that is. Hey, look at that thing. The Macintosh C712, the Macintosh series of preamplifiers has almost always had great stoner stages in them because they realized that a discerning high-end reproduction system will at some point at least entertain the idea of having a vinyl presence, and they need to account for that. So I don't need external phone stage. That sounds good to me. Inexpensive solutions. Okay, here's what I recommend for this table. If there's any way in the world you can cough up the money for this solution I'm going to give you, then do it. Goodbye phono stage, preamp, hello table. Okay, here we go, like that. That's good. For a phono stage, I would recommend you go for one I fell in love with at first sight, only in the moving magnet. And it will do coils, but it's not nearly as good. And the moving magnet, or cartridge I recommended to you, are all moving magnet. I would recommend the Lehman Black Cube. The Lehman Black Cube. The Lehman Black Cube, it's about $300 to $500 depending on where you go. You might even find it $250 used. Used ones are fine. Box about that big. Big as your two hands put together. And very simple design, very extremely clean in the moving magnet stage. That will allow you to hear a lot better what this is doing in the first place. Because you got plugged up to some inexpensive receiver now, built in the last 15 years, you ain't hearing nearly what this thing's doing. You're hearing a piece of it. Another inexpensive solution is old receivers. The 70s and the 80s vintage, not so much 80s, more like 70s and late 60s vintage, with a cleaning from a local radio guy or a stereo guy or someone who knows electronics, will do wonders for your vinyl setup. And you can get those receivers at garage sales now. Well, it's scratchy. I don't like it. It's scratchy. I'm scratchy because they get to spray a little bit of starter fluid or pretend to meter cleaner inside the volume control while it's off. Turn it full extended to full detended for about real fast, about 5 turns per second for about 2 minutes. 3 times and then just let it sit for 5 hours and it's done. Stuff like that. So particularly the Marantzes of the receivers of the 70s, the Stereotechs or the Mac Sounds. There's a Macintosh one in the 80s. If you could, it's not common to find it, but there was one or two of them. You also have some. There's a bunch of them. I'm just trying to think of names off the top of my head. You also have the Marantz, you have the Macintosh. You have there's some quad guys out there, especially Europeans. They're very big on quad. Quad was a big one back then. A little finicky, but it gets the job done. Even some of the RC, the Dynacos. The Dynacos were good. The Heathkits could be built. Some of them, I think, might have been able to be built with an integrated configuration, which is just basically the receiver complete minus the radio part. That was good. So you got options. The vintage guys help you with that. Kenwoods in the 70s were pretty good. Some of the early 70s Pioneer was good. Some of the early Sony stuff was pretty impressive. So, probably in the 70s. So, Luxman, you get the idea. Look up those names on eBay. Find the one that's been cleaned or working well. Order it. Put it in your system. You won't regret it when it comes to getting performance from your vinyl front end. Actually, CDs sound better sometimes too. They treat them like vinyl and it makes them sound a little warmer. Okay. Now that we went through all that, you probably want me to prove to you that what I told you is true. I am going to prove it to you. Now, I'm going to take a pause for the cause, and I'm going to put on an LP, and I'm going to let you hear what my Technics 1200 sounds like. Be back in a second. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play something for you, and what I'm going to do, let me turn on my amplifier. And we're back. What I'm going to do now is demonstrate how my system sounds. And for that, what I want to use is an LP that I think was recorded very well and mastered quite well. It's not an audiophile LP per se, but I find the sound quality to be stunning. Here's what I'm going to use. Let me pull it back. I don't know if you can see that. This is Pat Metheny with Krista McBride and Antonio Sanchez. This was a special release of the Day Trip, Tokyo Day Trip Triple LP. It was a very awesome pressing because you had 3 sleeves in there with custom artwork. I mean, just gorgeous stuff. Look at there. Just gorgeous stuff. I try to get as much Pat as I can on vinyl because he always has a release through his label of his recordings on vinyl. I have the last 3 on vinyl. We're going to look at a track right here called Dreaming Trees, right there. I'm going to play that for you right now so you can get a sense of how my Technics sound. And it might sound a little bit different than yours, but I think you'll like it. So stay tuned. Okay, now we're going to demonstrate for you quickly how this system sounds properly configured. I'm going to play a track from an old album that may be difficult to find on ESP Records. It is Patty Waters Sings. She was a pianist who was given instruction by both Ornette Coleman and Miles Davis. We're going to play a quick selection from her just to give you a glimpse of what a properly configured Technics 1200 can do.
Sad am I, glad am I, you hold me, scold me, give me such pain. Why do you mean so much to me? I guess I'm a fool, one of those afraid to run.